everyone. We are back with back-to-back series for the upcoming exam. And today's module is going to be antenatal care. And I'm Dr. Bonam Sriharika, mentor at Study Medic. So what cases do we see, or what cases do we expect in antenatal care module? The most important ones usually are antepartum hemorrhage, Jehovah's Witness, with antepartum hemorrhage or placenta accreta spectrum, abruption with or without high blood pressure. Most of the times hidden agenda can be Rh negative blood group in this abruption scenarios, MCDA twins, fetal growth restriction, fetal genital mutilation, preterm labor, premature or preterm pre-labor rupture of membranes, PPROM, and obesity with or without bariatric surgery. And obesity can be a preconceptional counseling, or it can be a antenatal care in a patient who had a bariatric surgery. And the other cases which we sometimes see nowadays, we have been seeing surrogate pregnancy cases and sometimes congenital anomalies or soft markers noted in the scan to explain the report, or a teenage pregnancy to complicate. There can be, along with the teenage pregnancy, there can be a hidden agenda of substance abuse or any other associated, like it can be safeguarding issue in a teenage lady. So some one or the other agenda usually will be there in a case of teenage pregnancy. And most common hidden agendas, as I said, the first most common one is domestic violence. The second most common one is Rh negative, and it can be, you also can have a substance abuse or alcohol or safeguarding issues and all. And the list is exhaustive, and there are new cases which RCOG is trying to actually add as well. So going to the domain-wise approach, I usually say it is always better to see domain-wise, because the more you practice, you'll be able to see in which domain, which is the important point. In the antenatal care module, what are the most common things? In the information gathering, depending upon the presenting complaint and depending upon the station, see if the patient has come to you with a preterm labor or PPROM, you'll have to ask the details if there is any, from when is she having the draining, that is the onset of draining, and does she have any associated pain along with that? What is the color of the leak? Is there any meconium, any associated bleeding? Rule out the signs of chorioamnitis. These things are very important. So, and always you have to ask the details of the present pregnancy, if it's a planned pregnancy or unplanned pregnancy, and then type of conception. And in case of any emergencies, like say if it is an antepartum hemorrhage or eclampsia or any other emergency situations, you have to always use the word that you will be taking a quick relevant history and simultaneous resuscitation. So these words indicate or tell the examiner that you are actually giving importance to patient safety and taking only relevant history and not a detailed history at this point of time. It just doesn't make sense if a patient comes with antepartum hemorrhage, patient is in like unstable, or the patient's vitals are actually, or observations are actually showing that the patient is not stable, or the patient is having hypotension. All those situations you'll have to take quick relevant history and go through the handheld notes to get more information, rather than asking each and every minute point. So in those cases of emergency, quick relevant history and simultaneous resuscitation words are really important. And when they say relevant history, you'll have to ask only the things which are important to a particular condition. You can go through the handheld notes as well as the discharge summaries of the previous pregnancies. Always try to check if what are her future fertility ideas, especially in cases of placenta accreta and all, or in patients with VBAC and all. These future fertility ideas are really important. In cases of emergencies like antepartum hemorrhage, also in cases of VBAC and all, or when you're sending a patient who might come up in emergency, if you have any suspicion, all those cases, you can ask the distance from the home as well. In case if the patient had a bariatric surgery and comes to you, then in presenting complaints, after presenting complaints, you can just ask little details about the bariatric surgery, like what type of bariatric surgery she had, what was the interval since the surgery, because minimum 1 year or 12 to 18 months is the interval which is recommended for her to wait for the nutritional deficiencies to set in, and then she can rectify them and go ahead and plan pregnancy. So, and you have to also see that if she's under the dietitian follow-up, are there any complications related to the surgery, and is she under regular follow-up with the pediatric surgeon? In case if it's a surrogacy pregnancy, details about the surrogate, details about the agreement, about the commissioning couple, and as well as the legalities, you'll have to usually check. Now, always in antenatal patients, because there is a high chance of depression in antenatal patients, important to screen them for the mental health questionnaire, and always rule out the domestic violence. Do signpost before asking the habits, and it is important to also rule out the substance abuse. In patients with FGR or small for gestational age, important points in the history, you'll have to ask if the patient is on vigorous exercise or vigorous diet, and if the blood pressures are high or normal, if the sugars have been done or not in the pregnancy, any other risk factors and partner's history. These things are usually important in patients with fetal growth restriction, previous history of fetal growth restriction. These points you'll have to ask in the history to elicit all the risk factors of the FGR. And in case a patient comes with a female genital mutilation and a midwife is referring to you because there is a circumcision done, you'll have to ask the details where the FGM was done and what were the did she have any complications after that, any persistent pain from that point of time, any problem with the waterworks, any problem after signposting while having intercourse, and does she have any post-traumatic stress disorders, any flashbacks, and what is her opinion about it, what is her idea and her partner's idea about the baby going ahead and getting done, making the baby to get the FGM done, and if she had any previous child, has the child undergone FGM. So these points you'll have to check in patients with FGM. And like any other stations, drug allergies, blood group reservations are really very important in FGM stations. Smears is also important. Depending upon what kind of station you get, you'll have to see what are the other relevant things and you have to ask them. For example, in case of teenage pregnancy, you'll have to rule out abuse, ask the age of the partner, rule out grooming and all those things. In FGM, you'll have to ask about the smears. In cases of preterm delivery or PPROM, you'll have to ask if there is any history of infection, any history of dysuria, any history of fever. So based on the relevant, based on the case what you get, you'll have to ask the relevant history to see if there are any risk factors or precipitating factors. And then you have to ask, can I examine in the presence of chaperone? Always, whenever you examine, you have to justify. In observations, what you're going to examine and why. And in per-abdominal examination, what you're going to examine and why. Say, if there's a patient of VBAC coming to you, you'll examine for scar tenderness. Say, if there is a patient of draining coming to you, you will have to look for the signs of chorioamnitis. Like, say, if the patient of antepartum hemorrhage is coming to you in observations, you're mainly looking if the patient is stable or not. Like, does the patient have tachycardia? Does the patient have hypotension? These points you'll have to be seen. If the patient comes with PPROM, you're doing per-speculum examination, mainly you'll have to rule out that there is no meconium, that there is no cord, all kind of these things you'll have to see. In case if the patient is having an antepartum hemorrhage, always rule out that there is no placenta previa in the scans, and then only you'll have to go ahead and do a per-speculum examination and do not do PV examination in these situations. And if you're doing a per-vaginal examination, always justify what are you going to see in the per-vaginal examination. You're checking for pelvic adequacy, you're checking for dilatation. Whatever you're talking, you'll have to always justify. Next, coming to the next important module, I actually always feel that the patient safety is the most important module. So in this module, you have to mainly see important points are blood group reservations, allergies. In case of antenatal care, talking about aspirin is very important. If you have a report, do confirm the name and NHS number. Interpartum period, it's very important to do continuous CTG, IV cannulas, grouping and saving. And in all emergencies, talking about first resuscitation and then relevant history and then resuscitation and then going ahead for the further management. And the asterisk points will be like usually the allergies, blood group and typing, and then grouping and saving. Like in VBAC, these are the important points, and continuous CTG in VBAC. Like every station has got its own asterisk points. You'll have to always see and think like what could be the asterisk point. If you have 2 minutes time outside the station, outside starting your task, in case if you are done with reading it, you can just make a point of this asterisk point so that you will not be deducted marks, because if you miss the asterisk point, you'll be marked 0. And next, patient safety, one more important point is explaining about the safety netting advice or red flag signs. In case if the patient has come to you with some kind of medical condition, and in case if you're sending that patient back home, say for example, there is a patient of placenta previa has come to minimal bleeding, and then you have stabilized, given steroids and all those things. Now you're sending her back home. You will have to say that in case if there is any sudden heavy bleeding or if there is any giddiness or any other specific concerns, you'll have to come back immediately. Like that, in every case, you should know and you should tell about the red flag signs if it is relevant, and then you have to ask her to come back. And then contraception till optimization of medical factors. If the patient is coming to you with pre-pregnancy counseling or preconceptional counseling in a medical condition, always it is very important to optimize the medical condition and give contraception during the period of optimization, and then only she can go and embark on pregnancy. Without optimizing the medical condition, say if you have a pre-GDM patient with HbA1c of 9, you tell about everything that can happen in pregnancy and need of sugar control, and you just don't prescribe contraception. She goes home and then she conceives and comes back. So it is an important safety point that you have to give a contraception till the optimization of the medical condition. And appropriate care plan and explaining the complications in medical disorders complicating pregnancy, and always involve the MDT. And in case if you are explaining certain risks to the patient, say for example, a VBAC patient, you are explaining that she can have a scar dehiscence. The patient will be scared at that point of time when you say scar dehiscence. You can tell that 5 in 1,000 can have scar dehiscence, but don't worry, you have less risk factors. Talk about her favorable factors first and then about the unfavorable factors, and you are in safe hands, and we can try doing appropriate monitoring throughout the pregnancy and close surveillance so that we can reduce the risk of having these kind of problems. So you can tell the risk, and immediately as soon as you tell the risk to the patient, you'll have to tell what risk mitigation steps you're going to take, and that she's under a appropriate group of doctors care who are very much expertise in the particular thing or particular area, and then they'll take a good care of you. In patients with FGM, it's always important to ask about the interpreter in the beginning of the station itself, and explain the UK law, need of screening for hepatitis C, proper documentation, recording and reporting is important. Involve the consultant where and when necessary. Remember, you are ST5, you are not a consultant for the MRCOJ exam. So please, any doubt or any kind of complicated pregnancy, or you suspect anything that you are not sure about it, then you can involve the consultant, say, I'll get in touch with the consultant and I'll get back to you. And then the buzzwords, you have to use these buzzwords, like in cases of antepartum hemorrhage, postpartum hemorrhage, you have to use the word major obstetric hemorrhage. And in case of Jehovah's Witness, there is an advance directive, or a patient with a severe psychiatric illness, there is an advance directive. A patient with losing the, the competency to give consent, those patients usually they have advance directive. Do not override the advance directive, do not override the autonomy. In case of all emergencies, you preferably try to use the word CRIMA, or remember the word so that you'll cover most of the points. What is CRIMA? C means communication. That means you're involving the MDT. R means resuscitation, the IV fluids, all those things you'll have to talk about it, airway, breathing, circulation and all. Investigations like complete blood picture, coagulation profile, ultrasound, and then PT, FTT, INR, LFT, RFT, whatever urea electrolytes you're going to send, you have to talk about them. Monitoring like MEOS chart, input, output chart and all, and adjusting the cause, like what is the underlying cause of this PPH. If it is atonic PPH, you'll have to treat it with medical disorders, not with medical management, not well optimized with medical management or not controlled with medical management. Then you have to go for mechanical methods as well as the surgical methods. So everything in order, you have to try and think in the sequence in the CRIMA and use the word CRIMA so that the examiner also will know if you talk about these communication, resuscitation, investigations, monitoring and arresting the cause. Teenage pregnancy, very important is safeguarding. Check the partner's age, rule out abuse and rule out grooming. This is about the patient safety. Now, coming to the applied clinical knowledge involving the MDT, consultant-led unit or midwife-led unit, you'll have to decide based upon the risk factors. Preconceptional advice, what you have to give. For example, a patient is obese, you'll have to tell that she should lose weight, explain the benefits of losing weight, explain the benefits of bariatric surgery, explaining the implications, explaining the need of waiting for 12 to 18 months for the nutritional deficiencies to set in, and then optimizing the deficiencies and optimizing the weight, and then go ahead and embarking on pregnancy. In the antenatal care, you'll have to talk about all the possible maternal and fetal risks, how to minimize them, and what and when are the scans indicated, what kind of medications are you going to give, like folic acid. And if you suspect that there is a high-risk pregnancy, please add on low-dose aspirin. But sometimes they might give in the role players instructions that she's allergic to aspirin. So please don't forget to rule out allergies. And then how frequently does she require the antenatal checkups? And in preterm labor or PPROM, if the patient is coming with preterm labor or PPROM, please do talk about the tocolysis if indicated. If a patient has IUFD, don't talk about tocolysis. Or if there is active bleeding, abruption, don't talk about tocolysis. Do remember about the contraindications of tocolysis and then talk about tocolysis. Give the steroids, magnesium sulfate if indicated as per the gestation. Explain the fetal risks. Even in antepartum hemorrhage, you have to talk about the steroids, magnesium sulfate. Tocolysis usually is not indicated. It's one of the contraindication. And then what are the risks with antepartum hemorrhage? Need of blood products have to be counseled. And whatever you counsel, you have to document everything. Next, in the intrapartum care, you have to talk about where is she gonna deliver, like place of delivery, timing of delivery means gestation, mode of delivery, And then intrapartum care, what is the postpartum care? In postpartum care, you have to always divide it into clinical issues and clinical governance issues. Clinical issues talking about analgesics, if indicated antibiotics, VT risk assessment, and if indicated giving thromboprophylaxis. And in case in the clinical governance, you'll have to talk about the 4Ds, that is DATEX form, that is clinical risk management. You'll have to incident reporting, duty of candor, sorry if there is a problem really. DBT, I already told in the clinical, discharge summary, and then proper documentation. Always give a follow-up plan, talk about the breastfeeding in the postpartum period, as well as you have to talk about the contraception. In case of the patient needs follow-up, you'll have to always talk about the follow-up. And sometimes if there is a risk of recurrence, for like gestational trophoblastic disease, you'll have to explain the risk of recurrence. And you'll have to enter the registry in case of GTD. If registry is required, and then you'll have to enter in the registry if that is there. And then in the applied clinical knowledge, after explaining the condition initially and talking about all these things, you'll have to talk about the investigations, justify when you're talking about the investigations, and you have to make a comprehensive, mutually agreed plan with a contingency backup plan as well. And if you have any images or any reports given, you have to interpret the images and read the reports, and pending reports, if she's due for any, you'll have to talk about those reports as well. Any report you have to always cross check the name and NHS number, the second name. Say if she's Harriet Dawson, and in the reports, if it's given as Harriet Johnson, please see that one word can be changed, and that itself will mark you down in the patient safety. Now, coming to the communication with the patient, initially you have to introduce yourself, greet, confirm name and age, ask how to address her. Don't say your name is Harriet, so can I call you Harriet? No, you have to say how can I address you. And then agenda. See, most of the students, I usually see they, after introducing themselves, they'll ask, can you tell me more about yourself, or can you tell me what is your problem? No, not like that. You are given certain candidate instructions. You can say like, see, you have come with this complaint. This is why your GP has referred you, and you want to know about the contraceptive options. Is it so? So you make an agenda, and then you can ask her to tell more about it. Sympathy, empathy are very important. Sympathy, empathy is not just in your words, also in your tone, also in your facial expressions. They see everything, especially if there is a lay examiner. It is really scoring, very easy to score in the presence of lay examiner just with having a tone which is low, and sympathy, empathy, where and when required. So please do not miss on that. And no jargons, please. Investigations is a jargon, contraception is a jargon, implant is a jargon. You have to use the words which are layman words, birth control methods, not investigations, blood tests. So everything you have to see. This no jargons thing will only come when you practice more. Okay. And then where and when required, please draw and then show the patient that you're drawing and showing, and giving information in chunks, check her understanding. Give all the options like a cafeteria approach. You have to give all the options, let her understand, and you have to tell them probably this one suits you better, and then let her decide. This is informed decision making. And in case if the patient is angry or breaking bad news, see if somebody is there beside her, and you can say sorry, but only once, do not repeat it. Breaking bad news, you don't just say that I do understand. Say if there's an IUFD patient, I've seen candidates saying, sorry, I understand your situation. They might say, how can you understand? Did you have a baby who died inside your womb? So you can say, sorry, I can't even imagine what you must be going through. Do not repeat the questions twice. Do not stop when she's talking. In case by mistake, if you have stopped when she's talking, you say, sorry, can you just go ahead? I'm sorry for interrupting you. Then she'll go ahead, and then you can repeat what you want to say. In the end, give the patient information leaflet, support group addresses. You'll have the specific support group addresses will be there. For example, you have DAISY support group for POI, and UK endometriosis for endometriosis. So that specific words you should be able to remember. And then the peer support groups, and document the consultation. Now, coming to the communication with the colleagues, it is very important to involve the MDT where and when required. Senior obstetrician, gynecologist, neonatologist, surgeon, urologist, hematologist, neurologist, cardiologist, rheumatologist, urogynecologist, all these things depending upon what kind of station you're doing, what is your module. Please do involve them. Counselors play important role in most of the situations. Dietitian play important role, example in bariatric surgeries. Cessation services in alcohol and drug abuse. And senior obstetrician where and when you have a doubt. Placenta accreta spectrum, usually intraoperative cell salvage you have to check about the technician, blood bank people, hematologist, complex pelvic surgeon, interventional radiologist. And if consultant is away, please do say sorry, finish the consultation, and then you will say that you will discuss back with the consultant, is it okay to go ahead with the consultation? If referred by GP or midwife, write back to them. And in any structured discussions, always the structured discussions should go in an S-bar format. Now, few do's and don'ts I just wanted to discuss here. Scenario, for example, when given to take relevant history, example in labor. Do's, you have to check if the patient is comfortable to give history or not. Because if the patient is having pain, please give her some pain medication, and then you will have to give pain medications only after ruling allergy. Rule out the allergies, give pain medication, and then take quick relevant history. Check if she is okay to give history or not. Don'ts, in labor, there is no point of asking about smears or sexually shared infections or habits. Now, yeah, the other one, in labor, always give the second point is also same. Rule out allergies, and only then you'll have to give the pain relief. Prescribing analgesia without ruling out allergies, you should not do. Any women less than 25 years, do take relevant history and give safe sex advice and rule out sexually shared infections. Less than 25 also, I see candidates asking for smears. Please don't take. Okay. There's no need of smears, not indicated less than 25. FGM patients do's interpreter in the beginning itself. Okay, what if the patient doesn't know language? Don't miss to ask her about her and partner views on the baby or getting FGM done. This is very important. You should not miss that. In teenage pregnancy, always build rapport. If not, the teenagers will behave weird. And ask how everything is at school, and then you can go ahead with the questionnaire. Go ahead with the question. Be non-judgmental, make her comfortable, and then go ahead with the history. Instead of saying partner, you have to use the word boyfriend. Always rule out the sexually shared infections in patients with the teenage pregnancy. And don't ask history without building rapport. She might behave insensitively and might not or be reluctant to give the history. Coming to the other few more do's and don'ts. Allergic to aspirin, you have to check. Some they will not check and then just prescribe aspirin. If she's allergic to aspirin, you have to check for the alternatives or do the fetal surveillance. Do not prescribe aspirin. If the patient comes with abruption with NICU unavailable, don't say NICU is unavailable. You will shift her to other hospital. Abruption patient, if you shift to other hospital, will end up having an intrauterine death. So deliver the baby and then shift the baby to the other hospital. Okay. And then antepartum hemorrhage patients, do's always you have to rule out the placenta previa first before doing pervaginal examination. Don't do pervaginal examination. That's way to be on safer side. Make a habit and try to use the word perspectrum examination to assess the extent of bleeding or to assess the extent of dilatation. Now, VBAC patients not agreeing for continuous CTG, this is a negotiation task. Do not negotiate. You have to tell them that you can't monitor the baby without continuous CTG and that it is too risky and it can be sometime, it can cause life risk to your baby as well. Sorry to say that. So that is why it is really very important to monitor the baby. Okay, that is how you can tell her so that she'll be agreeing for a continuous CTG. Now, few important cases, just few important points I wanted to discuss. In antepartum hemorrhage, always you have to think if there are any associated symptoms of abruption, because abruption should not be forgotten. And you have to see the distance from the home in these cases, especially in placenta previa. Rule out previa and then do per-speculum examination. Don't do pervaginal examination. Group and saving is very important. And you have to check the blood group and give the anti-D accordingly. Antepartum hemorrhage patients, we usually give steroids and magnesium sulfate. Use the word CRIMA and major obstetric hemorrhage protocol. Now, coming to the abruption patient, especially with high blood pressure abruption patients, they are usually associated with pain. So first rule out the drug allergies and then give pain relief. Then you will have to take only relevant focused history and do simultaneous resuscitation. Check her in the history, basic things you will be asking, whatever is important, and then check her triage documents and the handheld notes which contains the rest of the history. Abruption, smoking is one of the risk factor, drug abuse is one of the risk factor, trauma is also risk factor. So please do ask about these three things. And then see if there's associated pain and if there is any bleeding, you document how much bleeding she's having. And BP recordings are important because high blood pressure was one of the important risk factor for abruption. So you can ask how are the BP recordings throughout the pregnancy, and also check on the imminent symptoms. And then do an immediate ultrasound to check that there is no intrauterine fetal death, and you have to go ahead with the comprehensive plan. Then coming to the Jehovah Witness, very important point in Jehovah Witness is advance directive. It's very important. Don't override the autonomy of the patient. Okay. Intraoperative cell salvage, you'll have to check the machine and staff availability, and you have to optimize the hemoglobin preoperatively. Autologous blood deposition is one option. If willing, you can do it 3 to 4 weeks before. Always counsel and document whatever you talk in patients with Jehovah Witness. If in emergency, anytime a woman comes with bleeding, you have to counsel her and again tell that this is what you have discussed. But in emergency, she can change her decision and let us know at any point of time. This you have to inform the patient. If the patient is unconscious patient and there is no advance directive, the obstetrician should act in the best interest of the patient. But to save your skin, involve your senior obstetrician for second opinion, and also put the hospitalization committee in the loop. Now, in placenta accreta, if you're reading a report of placenta accreta or explaining the report to the patient, it is similar to breaking the bad news. You will have to consider MRI. Patients with placenta accreta, it is like a breaking bad news. Check if somebody is there with her or not. Always consider MRI because it complements the ultrasonography report. Explain the maternal and fetal risks, and then 3 to 4 weeks prior only you'll have to make a multidisciplinary team agreed plan in placenta accretas. Usually the options in placenta accreta is one is doing hysterectomy versus leaving the placenta in situ, followed by methotrexate versus triple P procedures. Conservative options only you'll have to give in patients who are keen on future fertility. And when you're involving the MDT, see that the tertiary center, you should be doing the procedure with access to the interventional radiologist, intraoperative cell salvage technicians, specialist surgeons, availability of the intraoperative cell salvage, urosurgeons, senior pediatricians, senior anesthetists, and complex pelvic surgeons as well. And then coming to the plan in patients with placenta accreta, you have to give steroids, magnesium sulfate before 34 weeks, and plan delivery at 35 to 37 weeks because the elective plan is better. Coming to the contingency plan, if ends up in emergency, this happens, you should have a backup plan, because if the patient ends up in coming with bleeding before the tentative plan of the elective surgery, then you'll have to have a backup plan, which can happen in about 20% cases. Now coming to the domestic violence, most of the times it's a hidden agenda. Either if the patient is coming for multiple visits, or if she's feeling too much shy, or refuses for examinations to cover her bruises. These things are the clues, and you will have to pick those clues and tell the patient directly that in UK 1 in 10 women, they face domestic violence, and offer her support and tell that you will maintain the confidentiality. And always in cases of domestic violence, please rule out child abuse because child safety is priority. And in patients, if they come with DCDA twins, explaining, no, it's MCDA. By mistake, it is written as DCDA. In MCDA twins, explaining what is MCDA twins in layman's term, explaining the complications of MCDA twins, both maternal fetal risks that can happen, and the risks that are specific to twins, and those that are in general risks of twins, and in specific to MCDA twins, what risk can happen. These things you'll have to explain. And then frequent antenatal checkups, frequent scans, how do you monitor, how do you do the fetal surveillance, those things you'll have to talk. And then about the intrapartum care, mode of delivery, timing of the delivery, and the postpartum care you'll have to talk. In patients with congenital anomalies, describe what is the anomaly, could it be associated with any other anomalies, and why does this happen, and what are the chances of recurrence. And if the patient blames herself, you'll have to say should not blame yourself, that it is not her fault. So non-blaming attitude is really very important. And in FGM patients, you have to check the need of interpreter in the beginning itself. Explain the FGM law and ask where and when she had FGM and relevant symptoms, and check her smears, check her HIV, hepatitis, HCV. And you'll have to always talk about the UK law. That is very important, talk about the UK law, the reporting, the recording, as well as the safeguarding. The defibrillation, when are you going to do and what is the procedure? Under no circumstances the defibrillation will be done. always involve the MDT and the counselors, because psychological impact could have been there post the FGM procedure in these patients. And if the patient, if the case is a obesity and bariatric surgery, you should be knowing what is the BMI WHO classification, what are the types of bariatric surgeries, and roughly what are the complications that could happen. And then what is important, preconceptional counseling, explain the pregnancy risks, antenatal risk, intrapartum risk, and the postpartum risk, and the benefits of the bariatric surgery, delay of the pregnancy for 12 to 18 months, which I already told before, those things. And then high dose of folic acid in the pregnancy, low dose aspirin, dietitian referral, nutritional supplements, that OGTT should not be done because of risk of dumping syndrome. Instead, we have to do fasting and porcelain sugars, and ideal gestational weight gain, how much should be there, and what are the possible complications that can happen during the pregnancy, like band slippage, intestinal hernia, erosions, gastritis. So those things you'll have to talk. Now, I just want to talk about certain things, like few cases, a few important points. Few important cases. The most important thing here is surrogate pregnancy. Nowadays, we've been seeing cases with surrogate pregnancy. In surrogate pregnancy, pre-pregnancy counseling is very important. Counseling both the surrogate and the commissioning couple together is important. And then if the patient is low risk and there are no other specific risk factors, midwife visits are okay. If high risk, you will have to have a consultant-led unit visit. Involve the MDT, involve GP, risk assessment team, safeguarding team, safeguarding midwife, midwife supervisor, and community midwife. During pregnancy in surrogacy, the agreement to be discussed and recorded again with the consent, and the rest antenatal care is similar to the mother, any other mother. And 34 weeks, always the agreement has to be rediscussed, and and we have to see if the commissioning couple can attend the delivery or not. Legal and risk management team should be involved, and they have to decide if the baby can be discharged with the surrogate or should go home with the commissioning couple. And in case of any conflicts, you have to escalate to the consultant, and at the time of delivery, give surrogate time to spend with the baby, private time to discuss with the staff if she wants to keep the baby, because 4% cases she might want to keep the baby, and escalate to the risk management team, and legal support can be given in case if she wants to keep the baby, unless if she's fit. She can keep the baby unless if she's not fit, then that's a different thing. Now, coming to the FGR, you'll have to always identify all the risk factors of the FGR carefully in the information gathering, like what kind of conception, is she having scans, did she have any early pregnancy bleeding, any excess vomitings, any history of fever, and then is she on ecospirin, what are the blood tests, is OGTT normal or not, and regarding the BP recordings, and then how much is her weight gain, and please do check the handheld notes. And in FGR patients, you'll have to check the last menstrual period. This is mainly to see, because if menstrual cycles are regular or not. Sometimes if there is a wrong date also, you might calculate as FGR, but actually that baby could be a AGA baby. That's why. And then past medical history, habits, her profession. Sometimes she can be a model who is doing actually too much workout. So diet and workout are also important. And if there is a report, you should always see what she already knows, and then give a warning shot, and then you'll have to go ahead and read the report. Red flag signs you'll have to explain, an emergency contact number you have to give, MDT you have to involve, intrapartum care you have to talk about continuous CTG, and if she's smoker, put in touch with the cessation services. When you're explaining SGA/FGR, you have to explain it without jargons. Let it be SG or FGR. The minute difference, whatever is there, like the Dopplers are normal or the centiles, that you have to explain without any jargons to the patient. All FGR patients do urine dipstick because there could be a component of preeclampsia, and do BP charting and ask if she has any imminent symptoms. FGR risks you have to explain what can happen, and monitoring the baby with fetal surveillance, serial growth scans you have to talk, and frequent antenatal checkups, and need of checking the daily fetal kick count. In case of needs early delivery, steroids and magnesium sulfate. And what is the mode of delivery? When are you going to do cesarean section? And after the delivery, that the placenta has to be sent for the histopathology examination. Now, if it is a case of preterm labor, again, you'll have to elicit all the risk factors. Is there a history of urinary tract infection or any leak or anemia, any circlage, twins, fibroids? So these things you'll have to ask and check if she has pain, rule out allergies and give pain medication. Always any patient with pain, quick relevant history. Preterm labor, it is important to give steroids and magnesium sulfate as per the gestation. Tocolysis, if indicated, see that there are no contraindications. For PPROM, we usually give erythromycin 250 mg QID. So you have to talk about it. What investigations you're going to send, complete blood picture with CRP and WBC count you should be monitoring. A PPROM patient, if you're sending home, you'll have to monitor the CBP, WBC and AFI on a regular interval. Also do complete urine examination, urine culture and high vaginal swabs to rule out the source of infection, and a growth scan to have a estimated fetal weight and to have the NICU counseling to the patient and the attendant. When you're sending them home, you have to explain the signs of the chorioamnitis and red flag signs and need to come back immediately. When you're doing the examination, rule out the signs of the chorioamnitis. You have to say that you look for the fever, that is the temperature, and there's any uterine tenderness, any foul smelling discharge, all these things. Always check the NICU availability and involve the pediatrician in the loop. In teenage pregnancy, again, I'll discuss in detail also teenage pregnancy. First, most important thing is building the rapport, and then you have to use the word boyfriend instead of the partner. Rule out STIs, rule out abuse, involve the MDT, including the community midwife, because she is the person who is going back and seeing that this lady is taking the nutritional supplements regularly and attending the antenatal checkups without any fail. Involve the dietitian, involve the counselors, because they can have some kind of anxiety or depression in the picture as well. Explain what are the possible risks and the importance of getting regular checkup scans and the multivitamins or the supplements. Explain what you're going to do in the intrapartum period and what kind of postpartum care, what are the important things like breastfeeding support, contraception, safe sex advice, and mental health. Encourage to involve the patient, but you should never force the patient. There shouldn't be any coercion. 3 cases, I am just giving little details, like 3 most important cases I have put down here. The first important case is Jehovah's Witness. So here, in the candidate instructions, this is a structured discussion with the examiner. You're an ST5 you will now see your consultant who will be asking a series of questions. So you're going to see Haley, 30 years old. This is about Haley, 30 years old, third gravida, has come to you with the TFAST scan report at 21 weeks. Go through the scan and blood reports and discuss with the consultant regarding the further plan. You will be assessed on 4 main domains, all except communication with the patient, because it is a structured discussion. Communication with the patient domain is not there. Now, the scan report says that it is a single live fetus, 21 weeks gestation, no obvious anomalies, cervix is of normal length, fetal heart is good. Estimated fetal weight is normal. Placenta is anterior covering the os. That means it is just saying it's a placenta previa. And rescan at 32 weeks for placenta position. This is the impression. On examination, her observations are normal, but abdomen uterus is corresponding to gestational age and it is soft and relaxed. Now, this case, when you have this case, the first important, and you also have certain labs here. Her hemoglobin is normal, slightly towards the low normal side. WBC is normal, platelet count normal, blood group is O positive. So even if she comes with bleeding, antibody is not required. Complete urine test is normal and her thyroid value is also normal. Now, when they ask you to summarize the case, most of the situations in structured discussions, especially if it is a case of APH or PPH, please do remember that it will be an evolving scenario. So you'll have to summarize the case in the SBAR format. So this lady, if they ask you to summarize, you can say that this lady is a 30 years old lady, pregnant lady who has come to you with a scan report. And in the background, the TIFA scan report is showing that the baby is placenta after birth is lying over the os, that is a placenta previa, and with appropriate for gestational age baby. And assessment, you will do the clinical examination to the patient and follow-up scan around 32 weeks, mainly to rule out that there is no placenta accreta, that is in the follow-up, and you will take a detailed history to see what is the previous pregnancy, like if she had previous cesarean sections, if she had previous placenta previa, the details of the deliveries and outcomes of the previous deliveries. You will be taking a detailed history, you will be examining her, you will be sending the investigations accordingly, and follow-up scan at 32 weeks. If you have it out, you will do the MRI, and the management in the recommendations is based on the further report and based on the evolving scenario. You will treat her accordingly. Okay. Now, after the questions, our first question here in this is summarize the case. Second is what additional information are you going to gather? You will take definitely the history. Along with history, you'll have to check the handheld notes. And if there is any triage notes, you can, if the patient comes in emergency. And then usually after 1 or 2 questions, you will be given information. And here the information given is past obstetric history. First one is the cesarean section with breech. Baby girl, 3.1 kgs, uneventful. Indication is because of the breech. Second is a repeat cesarean section, a baby girl who again is fine, but she had a postpartum hemorrhage which has been managed conservatively and the baby is doing good. And rest all history is negative, but the important history is that she's a Jehovah Witness. And she is doing good, and now she has come with the scan report at 32 weeks. Now here they will interpret your ability to identify, or here they'll see your ability to interpret the scan image and come at a or arrive at a diagnosis. So enlarged placental size with multiple vascular lakes and lacunar sign with utero-vesical border not clearly seen. So this is indicating a adherent placenta with Doppler showing tortuous and irregular vessels in the placenta, which formed some vascular sinuses with turbulent flow, and the features are suggestive of placenta accreta. Sometimes they might just give the image, but usually don't worry, be reassured, they will usually give the report as well, I mean the impression as well, in most of the situations. So now what are the domain-wise important points in this particular case? I just want to say briefly, I'm not going into too many details. In the information gathering, it's very important to take focused history and any complaints of spotting she has in any patient of placenta previa or any bleeding. And because the scan report is saying at 21 weeks, you are not aware about the placenta accreta yet, and the information gathering question is the second question. So here you have to, you know that it is a placenta previa, so you will be seeing if she has any spotting and any other concerns so far in the pregnancy. Present pregnancy details, type of conception, and then check her handheld notes. Ask about the previous obstetric history, mode of deliveries, and details, complications. If she has discharge summary, you'll have to go to the discharge summary. Now, any patient with placenta previa, you have to check her future fertility or pregnancy plans and distance from the home. And then the medical, surgical allergy history, support at home, and mental health are very important in any station. So you're asking here also. Most important point here is reservations for blood transfusion. Can signpost and ask about the habits because she's not in the labor. She's just at 5 months gestation. So you can ask for completion sake, and do not do a provisional examination. So deduction marks, if you take the entire history, you will get the full score, a pass score. In case if you miss key information like blood group and reservation because she's a Jehovah Witness, what is her distance from home? What if this patient stays 2.5 hours away from the hospital in some distant town or a place where the facilities are not good? These patients, you will recommend admission in the hospital and stay in the hospital or to move to a nearby place for the pregnancy duration. And future fertility plans. Jehovah Witness patient, and this patient is having a placenta accreta, and this patient want to have further kids if she has only, if this is a she has only one kid and keen on having a further kid, or previous kid passed away because of some reason, and you end up having a cesarean hysterectomy. So that is why you'll have to definitely ask about the, if you miss any of these, the points will be deducted. And in the patient safety domain, now you get to know that she's Jehovah Witness, along with the routine things like normally in patient safety, we see what blood groups, reservations, allergies, red flag signs. Important to use the word placenta previa care bundle, major obstetric hemorrhage protocol, explaining the risk mitigation steps. Most important thing is advance directive in a case of Jehovah Witness. Advance directive is the asterisk points in patient safety. Involve MDT and do not override her autonomy. So here the deduction, if you fail to miss advance directive or you don't involve the MDT or override her autonomy, you will be marked down. So in information gathering, the asterisk point is checking about the blood group and reservations and no per-vaginal examination. In the patient safety, checking the advance directive is the asterisk point. Now, in the same case, communication with the colleagues in the MDT. I did tell about the list of people. Tertiary center, interventional radiologist, intraoperative cell salvage, availability, and the staff for the operation, and for operation of IOCS, and specialist surgeons, urosurgeons, complex pelvic surgeons, senior pediatrician, anesthetist, midwife, NICU availability, and involving the GP. And in communication with the colleagues, very important that you should hold a meeting, or you should hold a meeting and make a agreed plan for this patient at around 32 to 34 weeks itself and plan the delivery on 35 weeks. And you should have a backup plan in case if the patient is coming up in emergency. Okay, so the deduction criteria, if you fail to involve the MDT, especially senior anesthetist and the consultant, and not checking on the availability of intraoperative cell salvage availability and talking about it without checking the staff, or unable to make an emergency plan and patient came up in emergency and there's nobody to take care, there is no obvious plan and things get delayed and she might end up going into shock or mismanaged. In the applied clinical knowledge, they'll usually check how are you interpreting the images and considering the MRI or not, because MRI complements and will be able to tell what kind of adherent placenta is it. Is it eccrita, increta, or percrita? And if you're not being able to make correct diagnosis, not addressing the Jehovah Witness, the list of considerations, Jehovah considerations I'll be telling you in the next slide, and not knowing the management options of eccrita, and not being aware or talking about the risks of eccrita to the patient, and not counseling in a sensitive manner and not properly documenting and not making a post-operative follow-up plan. So deduction, if you're unaware of management options of placenta eccrita or fail to diagnose the condition or interpret the images, they'll deduct the points. So here, eccrita management options, MDT, I have already spoken. And then the second line is about steroids, considering MGS4 and planned delivery between 35 to 37 weeks with a backup plan. Options, you will do a hysterectomy, cesarean hysterectomy in most of the situations. But if the patient is keen on fertility, leaving placenta in situ, followed by methotrexate versus triple P procedure. And you need to have an expertise for these things. And conservative options, as I said, only if the patient is keen on future fertility. Now, the baby most of the times will be delivered via incision on the upper segment without attempting to separate the placenta. And then you'll go ahead for the hysterectomy in patients who have completed family. Use the word placenta previa care bundle. Principles to be followed in the care bundle involve the senior consultant to perform the surgery with senior anesthetist, involve the hematologist, blood bank staff, alert the urologist, initiate MOH, major obstetric protocol, hemorrhage protocol if needed. Preoperatively, if you can consider ureteric stenting to prevent the ureter injury or to identify it on time. Now, how do you counsel her? This patient's counseling is also important. That's why I've added this line. Always the patients with placenta eccrita or adherent placenta, explain the diagnosis similar to breaking bad news. Check if somebody has come with her, and you have to tell that the image is showing that the afterbirth is densely adherent to the opening of the neck of the womb, and sometimes it is not possible to separate, and this might end up having a removal of the womb. You might have to end up having the removal of the womb. And consider MRI to even more know about the further details, involvement of the adjacent organs as well. Risk to explain in the maternal risk, heavy bleeding, need of alternatives like need of blood products, risk of emergency cesarean section, need of ending up in emergency hysterectomy, injury to the adjacent organs, massive hemorrhage, DIC, prolonged hospital stay, acute kidney injury, ICU stay, life risk in a very sensitive manner. And fetal risk, prematurity, and echo care. Now, need of blood and blood products, you can't talk it in a patient with Jehovah Witness. You'll have to go into details, what products she can accept, what products she is not willing to accept. In emergency, is she going to take to change her decision? So those things you'll have to discuss in case of Jehovah Witness again. Jehovah's consideration 4 weeks prior to planned surgery, MDT should make a plan. Checking her advance directive, that is how wishes regarding the blood products, like what are documented in the directive, what are not allowed. Usually PRBCs, WBC, platelet, FFP are not allowed. You have to cross-check if cryo, anti-D, and clotting factors can be given or not. Intraoperative cell salvage is the second important thing, checking the availability of the machine and the trained staff. Preoperative optimization, you have to talk about it. The hemoglobin optimization you are going to do preoperatively, either with oral iron or with IV iron. And if the patient agrees, talk about the autologous blood deposition 3 to 4 weeks prior. And whatever you're talking, you have to counsel and document it very clearly, explicitly. And in case of emergency or any point of time, the patient can change her decision. And if she does so, she can let us know that you have to inform the patient. Other alternative things like preoperatively hemodilution, using the volume expanders, considering tranexamic acid and all. And always know about the Jehovah Witness hospitalization committee. And you have to tell the patient very clearly that in these kind of situations, the survival or outcomes, when you compare between the Jehovah Witness patients and non-Jehovah Witness mothers, the outcomes are better in non-Jehovah Witness mothers when compared to Jehovah Witness. In few situations, you can consider erythropoietin also in conjunction with hematologists, but erythropoietin can risk thrombocytosis and venous thromboembolism, so involve your hematologist. In case if you have a patient who's unbooked or unconscious patient emergency with JAO witness, if advance directive is available, you have to respect it. If it is not available, act in best interest of the patient and involve senior obstetrician for second opinion and involve the hospitalization committee, because you have to also save your skin. So when you look at the global score, we usually give pass mark to the patient if explains safe and suitable options clearly, and if she gives safe, informed, and reassured information, and summarizes the case in SBAR format, checks the advance directive, structured information gathering, relevant and simultaneous resuscitation when indicated, able to interpret the images, arrives at diagnosis, appropriately counsels the maternal and fetal risks, explicitly documents everything, and makes an MDT plan 3 to 4 weeks before with a backup plan as well, and good knowledge on ECRITA management options and Jehovah Witness considerations. Now, borderline, we usually give if you provide basic counseling, I mean that you talk a little about the backup plan, little about the ECRITA options, but you don't know completely. Jehovah Witness options also considerations, you talk a little, but you don't know. You talk about few maternal risks, don't talk about most of them. You take necessary history, I mean only a half of the history, only a few points you take, few important points you miss. Don't use the word simultaneous resuscitation. All these things we give the borderline mark. In case if you make an unsafe management plan, don't involve MDT, and don't summarize, not being able to interpret the images and plan or counsel appropriately, then we give the fail score. Now, coming to the female genital mutilation, this is a safe task. This is one of the most easy tasks, but one of the most commonly given patient-simulated tasks. So here you have a patient, Mrs. Abola Haibati, 32 years old, in her first pregnancy. She's relocated to UK recently and visited midwife, and the midwife has referred to you because she has had the FGM as a child. Her investigations, hemoglobin is there, rubella is there, syphilis, HIV, hepatitis B is there, HCV is not there. Ultrasonography is showing a 12 weeks gestation with NT and the double marker, or a first trimester screening showing low risk. On examination, you can see we have basically 4 types of female genital mutation. Type 1 is where the clitoris is removed. Type 2 is where labia minora or majora are removed, but there is no oversewing or no closing of the introitus. Type 3, there is oversewing. And then type 3 is the most dreadful thing. Type 4 is piercing or cauterizing, all kind of minor things, tattooing. Usually they come in type 4. So here the image is clear that it is a type 3 FGM, and it is the most serious form of FGM. So now this lady is confused and anxious. She's not aware why she's been referred by midwife. Your task is to explain her regarding the law of UK FGM law, and explain her antenatal care and make a delivery plan and address her concerns. All domains except communication with the colleague, but you have to write back to the midwife because the midwife has referred to you. So in the information gathering, after the introduction, making an agenda, first thing you have to do is check for interpreter. You take the entire history and then you understand that she's not understanding anything. What is the point? So please check for the interpreter if she requires anything, and then open question to understand her concerns. And you can sensitively ask about the FGM. Present pregnancy details, you can ask if she's in the first trimester. Please do congratulate, because most of the times they'll be happy, and check about the sickness and if there's any bleeding, if she's taking supplements, any scan so far, you can go through the notes. If she's in third trimester, ask about the movements, bleeding, draining, and if there is any pain, and if she has named the baby, and use the baby's name to address the baby. Okay. And any previous medical problems, surgical problems, allergies, family history, blood group, reservations, and then her height weight ratio. Signpost, ask about the habits. Smears are very, very, very important, because patients with FGM, especially type 3, must most of the times have not undergone smears owing to the difficulty in looking for the visualization of the cervix. FGM details, where it was done, when it was done, what does she remember about it, what kind of problems she have, does she have any menstrual problems because of this, or any problem with waterworks, is there any scarring, is there any cyst, and does she have any significant continuous pain down over there. And signpost, ask about dyspareunia and any other flashbacks, especially psychological well-being, because most of the times they have post-traumatic stress disorder with flashbacks relating to the procedure, and anxiety, and how is the support at home. Now, one more important point is checking her views and partner views about it. If she has had a previous kid, has the kid had FGM done or not, and any intention of getting it done to the unborn kid as well. And in the end, do examine in the presence of chaperone. And when you're talking, you can justify why you're going to examine this patient. If the patient is scared of examination, you can ask, do you mind me gently seeing you down below, because I want to make a note of few things. You can justify saying that you want to see if the urethral orifice is visible or not, because that might tell you that probably she might not require any defibrillation and all. You can justify if you're doing an examination, is what I want to say. Now, in the information gathering, here the asterisk point is, one is checking her views and partner views about it, because it is a safeguarding issue. So in deduction criteria, you don't identify the need of interpreter or psychological aspects of FGM. You have ignored the patients and partners' views of the unborn child getting it done. And you did miss on checking on her patient smears. It's a safety point. Now, coming to the applied clinical knowledge, you should be having a knowledge of what is FGM and what types of FGM are there, and then explain the UK law to the patient that it's illegal, and about the maternal risk, that the patient with FGM or who had circumcision down below, they're more prone to develop little prolonged duration of labor and more chance of requiring help during the cesarean, that is help during the labor, that is assisted vaginal delivery, need of cesarean section, risk of involvement of anal sphincter, risk of tears down below, risk of PPH, preterm delivery, infections and fetal risk of preterm delivery, and risk of stillbirth. And now coming to the, when you're talking about the risk of stillbirth in any station, let it be pre-gestational diabetes or an APLA patient or any case where you're explaining the risk of stillbirth, don't just say that there is risk of baby dying inside. Probably you can say that, unfortunately, I don't want to say this, but sometimes there can be a life risk to the baby as well. In these kind of situations, this is not to scare you. Don't you please worry about it, because you are in the safe hands, and we will take steps and do close monitoring to the baby to reduce those risks. So when you're telling a risk, you have to immediately say, please don't worry, you're in safe hands and we are going to take good care of it so that we can reduce the risk. You don't mean to say that you're completely going to eliminate the risk, which is not possible, but the risks can be reduced by close surveillance. Okay. And in the antenatal care, involve the MDT. MDT includes a senior obstetrician with special interest in this, or named midwife, psychologists, and counselors, possibly social services, in case of the baby is at the risk. And then what scans you're going to do, routine scans about the visits and all those things you'll have to talk. Coming to the defibrillation timing, usually you do it in the 5th month or in the labor can be done. And in the first or second stage of labor, depending upon that, you will have to use the scalpel or scissor that you have to talk about it, and explaining the implications of each option to ensure that she'll make an informed decision. You'll have to tell her when do you want, and then accordingly you can. And in the intrapartum care, you have to talk about the need of monitoring of the baby with the heartbeat trace. IV cannula is important because she is prone to develop PPH, group and save, and active management of the 3rd stage of labor. In the postpartum period, care of the episiotomy, and then if defibrillation is done, the wound dressing like paraffin dressing and all, you have to talk about it, about the pain relief medications and about the medications to prevent the infection, and assess the risk of blood clots, and accordingly will prescribe the medication. Breastfeeding, support with the lactation counselors, and appropriate birth control methods, and do talk about arranging for smears. If the patient says an information gathering smears is not done, if you think you'll forget in the applied clinical knowledge, there and then itself you can say that after the smears, when she says it is not done, don't worry, I'll put you in touch with the respected service people, and we'll see that post delivery or post operatively the smears will be done. Under no circumstances you have to tell that the reinfibulation would be done. So the most important thing when you're talking about UK law, you have to talk about the recording, about the reporting, and about the safeguarding issue. In the red book of the patient, of the child, you'll have to record that the mother has FGM. And then when you are recording, you'll have to say that you will be recording without any anonymity. But at the time of publication, the anonymity will be maintained. That the importance of that you'll have to explain to the patient. Deduction criteria, unaware of defibrillation timing, misses recording, reporting, and documentation, fails to explain maternal and fetal risk, then usually you will be marked down. Patient safety, very important thing is using the interpreter. And you should talk about screening for hepatitis C, because this patient hepatitis C is not done. And adhere to the UK laws, tell that it is illegal in UK. Under any circumstances, nobody should go ahead with the FGM or should get the FGM done. Okay, illegal to get it done, or illegal that when somebody takes somebody out of the country to get it done in the overseas. And then deduction criteria and patient safety, failing to identify the need of interpreter and unaware of safeguarding, reporting and recording, and failure to say that the infibulation will not be done under any circumstances. And now coming to the communication with the patient, greet, agenda, sympathy, empathy are all what we know. Apart from this, here important things are respect her religious and cultural views and empathy towards her experience. Should not be judgmental and make her feel comfortable and supportive, and whatever she's going to tell, you have to listen to her with the lot of patience. Deduction criteria: if you don't have sympathy, empathy, you will be marked down there. So pass, we usually give the pass mark if you are able to interpret the image, check the reports nicely, confirm the name and NHS number, type of FGM, give structured detailed history you're taking, focusing on the FGM details, everything including complications, including the psychological impact, checking the smears, details of the present pregnancy, explaining about the FGM law, that it is illegal, about reporting, recording, safeguarding, involving MDT, about defibrillation, about Red Book, documentation in HSCIC, and maternal and fetal risk if you're explaining antenatal, intrapartum, postpartum care, and a comprehensive care plan you're giving. Need of interpreter you're checking and giving importance to her religious views. If you're doing all these things and involving her in decision making, then you're pass. Borderline, if you are giving information to some extent but omit referral to few MDTs, use vague terms, few jargons, not emotionally supporting the patient, and you are unable to explain the UK law confidently, you miss on few points, and the patient is still anxious, then you will end up having a borderline mark. Fail you will be getting if you're not being able to interpret the image, and if you fail to take important history, if you miss on asking about the interpreter, no referral to MDT is done, not aware of UK law, and do not rule out the couple views on or ask about the couple view on unborn child getting the FGM, and leaves the patient confused or overwhelmed and unsafe. In those situations, you'll be scored fail. The last case is about teenage pregnancy. In the teenage pregnancy, again, this case, an example case, it's a patient simulated task. You're going to see, Nestify going to see Miss Kathy, 17 years old, primary gravida, who's a late booker coming at 21 weeks of gestation. She came to see you and to discuss about the safe pregnancy plan. The task is to communicate effectively with her, gather relevant information, ensure her safety, and apply your clinical knowledge to make a care plan and address her concern. Now, the midwife referred you because she's having infrequent antenatal checkups. She's also taking alcohol and she's a drug abuse person. And there's a history of depression and she's using fluoxetine. Now she's worried about the baby and breastfeeding and if social services will be taking away the baby. So there's so many things that you have to address here. You have checked the name NHS number. Scan is saying a single intrauterine fetus corresponding to 21 weeks. No obvious anomalies. It's a anomaly scan. And then uterine artery Doppler, normal, cervical length is normal, placenta is in the normal position. Blood group is O positive, complete blood picture, and the rubella are normal, all viral markers are negative. You'll be marked on all the domains except the communication with the colleagues. But you have to write back to the midwife because the midwife has actually referred you. Now, in the information gathering, as I said, first, immediately after introduction and agenda, you have to build the rapport. So any pregnancy complaints you have to ask, first thing is introduction, agenda, communication with the patient. You can see, I'm talking about communication with the patient domain, introduction, agenda, greet, no jargons, you have to build a rapport. Give the information in chunks, checking understanding, be non-judgmental, give the support group addresses. You will be directed mark if you're not being able to build rapport, because she will not give complete history. And if you give judgmental tone or expressions, she will just sit like that and will not give any history. Okay. So then after ruling out these things, after rebuilding rapport, you have to ask if she has any pregnancy complaints. How is it so far? So important to rule out abuse. You have to ask what is the partner's age, okay, and the relationship status, and then rule out grooming. And scans any previous any scans in this present pregnancy. Okay. And then about the menstrual cycles, any medical disorders. Now, this particular lady, already you know that she's having depression. Apart from depression, you have to check if she has any other medical disorders. And then she's known to have depression, like what kind of medication, fluoxetine she is using, anything else she is using. Always very important to differentiate the depression from the psychosis, because if she has hallucinations or illusions, it indicates she's having psychosis. Patients with psychosis, they need emergency treatment. It's a medical emergency. But if the patient is having depression, you can manage them. So rule out hallucination solutions, it's a safety point. And then suicidal tendencies, if she has any any idea of fetal risk or harming or intention of harming the baby, that you have to definitely ask. And what kind of medication she's taking, any other medical disorders, family history of psychiatric problems for all depression cases, you have to ask any surgical history, allergies, blood group reservations, how is the support at home, and are the partners aware, are the parents aware of the pregnancy. You can encourage her to involve her parent because she needs support throughout the pregnancy, but if she is not willing, do not force her. And rule out all sexually shared infections definitely in patients with teenagers. Signpost, ask about the habits. Now, this lady, you know that she's taking alcohol. So ask her signpost and say, don't mind me asking. I can see from the midwife notes that you do consume alcohol. How frequently are you going to take? Are you actually taking? Did you ever try or consider stopping? And if she says, yes, I did, then you have to say, yes, good that you are trying to stop. Don't mind me. Can I put you in touch with the cessation services? They can help you in a better manner. She's like, no, I'm not keen on interested on talking and all. She says, don't mind me telling that alcohol can sometimes have risk on your pregnancy to you as well as the baby. Not to scare you, but this can happen to you and this can happen to the baby. So that is why it is important to put you in touch with the cessation services. Do you want me to go ahead and put you with the cessation services? And then drugs details, what is she taking? Did she ever try giving up? And then if she says yes, encourage her and put in touch with cessation services immediately. Rule out abuse, as I said, partner's age. If the partner's age is grossly, a partner is elder, then it could be grooming. So check the relationship status. Always say boyfriend, not partner. Grooming to be always ruled out. You have to say what you can ask, what is the age of your boyfriend? How did you guys meet? Is everything all right? Like that, you can ask. You can tell me if there's anything, will maintain the confidentiality. Those things you have to use the word so that she'll open up and tell you more details. You have to ask intentions towards the baby, what she feels about the baby, and examine the presence of chaperone. So reduction criteria here, if you fail to rule out abuse and if you fail to rule out that there is no psychosis and suicidal tendencies, there you will be deducted points. Now, next coming to the patient safety, again, safeguarding is very important. If you can't rule out safeguarding, you will be marked down here. Involving the MDT and putting in touch with the cessation services are important in reduction criteria. So apart from the drug allergies, blood group and reservations, and then if she has severe mental illness, all patients who have severe mental illness, it is important to take the advanced directive as well. Now, in the MDT, in this particular station, along with senior obstetrician consultant-led unit, counselors, dietitian, involve the perinatal mental health team, psychiatrist, as well as the counselors because she has the depression. Better to put her or talk to her about the mother-baby unit and cessation services, rehab centers, GP and community midwife or community health care worker who will be tracking her up and how she is doing and following her up. Now, in the applied clinical knowledge, you have to make a comprehensive plan. Teenage pregnancy risks, everything you have to, every condition, explain the risks a little. In teenage pregnancy, preeclampsia, preterm delivery, small baby, she can have breastfeeding issues and all, and mental health problems. Depression and fluoxetine. Fluoxetine is a relatively safer drug, but she need to continue throughout the pregnancy. If she gives up on the drug, she might end up going into psychosis. So the need of continuing the pregnancy, avoiding the precipitating factors like stress and sleep deprivation. In the alcohol, you have to talk about the risk of miscarriage, preterm delivery, small baby, alcohol spectrum, some kind of problems the baby can have, like having learning, behavioral problems, developmental problems, and all. And if she's using drug abuse, maternal risk like early pregnancy loss, preterm delivery, stillbirth, high blood pressure, abruption, anxiety, agitation, stroke, and coma. Fetal risk with the drugs can be early and late fetal loss, small babies, growth restricted babies, structural anomalies depending upon what kind of drug, developmental problems, sudden infant death syndrome called as the cord death, neonates not being able to maintain the sugars or temperature, feeding issues, or having the withdrawal symptoms. It's very important to explain the importance of regular antenatal checkups for the teenage patients, the importance of getting the scans done on time, tests done on time, prenatal vitamins, explaining the intrapartum care and mode of delivery and monitoring. Routinely, now this patient is worried about the safeguarding team or social services taking away the baby. You can say routinely, usually they don't take off the baby. Routinely, we don't, or the baby is not referred to safeguarding team. The midwife and the perinatal mental health team will assess the situation. And then you can be considered a mother and baby unit instead. Okay, unless if she has a suicide or infanticide risk, then that's a different story. Then the baby should be given to the safeguarding team. Okay. And then in case if she is not having the psychosis or the suicidal tendencies or infanticide risk, you have to talk a little about the mother and baby unit. It is mainly designed to keep the mother and baby together. It's a homely place. It has MDT, and each mom has her own bed and cot for the baby, and the entrance is controlled by the staff for the safety. And named specialist nurse will be there, nursing nurse will be there, senior consultant psychiatrist will be there, who will be knowing the contraindicated drugs in the breastfeeding and the pregnancy. And you have occupational therapists who will be treating the condition and the situation in a creative way. And postpartum, you have to further give the advice on breastfeeding, support in the postpartum period, contraception advice, safe sex advice, as well as the mental health support. So reduction criteria and applied clinical knowledge, if you're unable to talk about the maternal and fetal risks due to alcohol, drugs, or the depression, or you're not being able to make a comprehensive antenatal, intrapartum, or postpartum plan, then accordingly you will be deducted the marks. And the global score or overall, a pass score will be given in teenage pregnancy if you initially build up the rapport, take a detailed history, rule out abuse, grooming, and rule out drug abuse, alcohol. And then when she has this history of alcohol and drug abuse, you have to involve the cessation services in a non-judgmental manner, going into details of depression, checking medications, rule out family history of any mental health illness, explaining the possible maternal fetal risks with each one of this situation, and putting in touch with cessation services, ruling out the red flag ones, that is the psychosis or suicidal ideas or feticide risk, and reassuring the availability of mother and baby unit with warm environment and MDT care. So make a comprehensive care plan involving all these things. You will be given a pass score. In case if you're unable to build rapport or rule out abuse, you do take history, but only partly, not being able to put in touch with cessation services, misses on ruling out psychosis, suicidal tendencies, or you don't involve MDT or partly involve MDT. When the patient is still confused and you don't talk about safeguarding issues, and patient leaves with partial understanding or mild anxiety, then you'll be given a borderline score, and will be given a fail score if you fail to take important points in the history, especially the asterisk points, false reassurance to the patient that baby will not be taken away, don't worry, we'll take care, and all those kind of things, without involving the MDT, MBU, or cessation services, or leaving the patient confused.